Why is it that some things, they're just like drilled into your head, into your brain from a child? Like not important things like taxes or like how to do calculus or even how calculus actually works, but things like how if you need cash now, you'd call JG Wentworth, 877 cash now, okay? If you have questionable credit, I know where to get a car from. It's 199rides.com. Woo! Because that's just what they do in Appleton. Or Zoo Pals, making eating fun, okay? It's just stuck in your head, and I wanted those paper plates more than life itself. In the automotive scene, there are brands that are just like that. They're like the salt at every table. They're there, lurking around every corner, staring at you in the depths of your soul, waiting for you to say something that starts with S. I'm Alex at FI on Instagram, and today we're going to be talking about the history of one of the biggest suspension names in the industry right now. We're talking about the real truth about, the must-have facts, the history of, the so to speaks, the beginning origins, the prequels of stories. We're talking about the must-have history of BC racing. Also, we're giving away a mystery tee and an FI banner to a lucky winner who drops a comment below on what video you'd like to see us make as we finally get into summer up here. It can be a topic, series, or parody. We'll announce the winner in next Tuesday's video. And of course, if you're looking for aftermarket wheels, tires, or suspension like BC Racing, be sure to hit us up over at fitmentindustries.com. That includes BC Racing, where we stock just about every possible variant of BC's massive lineup. With that out of the way, and JG Wentworth sitting behind me, you know, on the green screen, just making me feel a little bit more comfortable but wanting cash now, let's jump into the history. Let's spit some facts. It was a little cringe. BC Racing was founded right before Y2K, or 1999 for those folks that don't remember that awkward moment in our history. It was when the computers were gonna go to 0-0 and everybody was freaking out that everything was gonna shut down. It was founded in Nantou, Taiwan, and with the very first BC Racing coilover debuting in 2004. Bo Quan or Bo Chuan or BC Racing would use the first 5 years of its existence building suspension components, garnering locations and land overseas in places like Dali, until it released its first BC Racing coilover kit. Within the first 2 years of making the full suspension coilover kits, BC Racing would go from a small startup shop overseas to a relatively fast-growing suspension company, with the BR-type coilover being released in 2006 and then coming to the United States through the use of just expansion. Cha-cha-cha-chia. See, there's another one. Do you remember that? You could get one, you grew water in it, Scooby-Doo. And each year was another big win for BC Racing's home base. I mean, with its capital continuing to increase, BC Racing was able to keep expanding its product portfolio, winning awards like the Golden Peaks Award, 10 Best Enterprises, and more. And you have to remember that this company is relatively-ish new when it comes to the suspension game. About 20 years or so is enough to kind of put your feet in the ground, but not long enough to say that you're one of the OGs. So they were moving really fast and garnering a lot of attention. In 2010, BC would go on to introduce BC Forged wheels, with their wheels being A-OK for JWL and VIA testing in 2011. And from there, you have what people like you and people like me know about BC Racing coilovers. BC Racing coilovers would begin to grow everywhere, places like the United States, Australia, Taiwan, Japan, and more. And as they grew, so did their presence in the scene. You had BC Racing jump into drifting with people like Chelsea Denofa, making waves in social media world with the biggest old BC logo on the side of his car and all of it so on the hood. And then you had people like Vaughn Gittin Jr., Ryan Turk, Adam LZ, James Dean, and Chris Forsberg would all run BC coilovers in their respective drift, drag, or hoon cars at some period of time, which continued to push the popularity of this brand forward. That was the crazy thing about BC Racing, is that they really started to establish themselves as a properly good suspension brand, and it was pretty fast and it was almost at the perfect time. And nowadays, a lot of people are wondering if it's just drifting fanboys that are picking up BC Racing coilovers, and that's just not true. What makes BC Racing is, you have to almost ask yourself like this very question. What if your child could visit steamy jungles, grassy plains, and the dark depths of the ocean to meet and learn surprising facts about the magnificent animals that live there, all through the captivating, colorful pages of zoo books, the publication created especially for young readers? I hope I unlocked a memory, and if I didn't unlock a memory there, we're at 2 different age brackets, and I gotta change the way I do all of this. I want zoo books so bad, and you got the Tiger poster for free. What made BC so popular was their explosion of support to so many platforms over such a short period of time, at a price that nearly everyone could jump into and still get all the goodies that everybody wanted from an expensive coilover equivalent. That was really the greatest thing about BC at the time. You had them introducing things like the classic BR series coilovers with their monotube design, compression and rebound controllableness that you could have on it, fully rebuildable, and the ability for custom valving if you wanted. You kind of got some of that like uniqueness right at the entry level with BC Racing's coilover at about $1,000. Then you had the RM series that has an inverted shock design to push the damper fluid away from the braking system, along with a larger inverted piston shaft to handle more abuse. Again, a little bit of a step up, more track oriented. Then you got the DS/DR series, which uses a digressive piston to give you more stiffness, you know what I'm saying, at the right time versus the feeling being linear regardless of driving conditions. Again, a little bit of a step up, and also more towards a car being used for both types of conditions. The DS series does slap, and if you've driven on it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It is a pretty decent, really strong middle-of-the-road coilover. Then you've got the ER series, which has the external reservoir for you fancy folk. Okay, that looks the sickest, but honestly, you just gotta make sure you're actually gonna use it because it is pretty expensive. The HM series, which is a combination of the ER series and RM series, but the HM series has two-way compression and rebound adjustments on the external reservoirs. And if you're only doing track applications, then the HM series could be up your alley. And then you got the big old daddy D, the ZR series, the three-way adjustable coilovers with all the juice meant for exclusive race use. It extends the compression customization to an additional 15-way low-speed compression and a 12-way high-speed compression. What does that mean? More customization, okay? No matter what, this is all to say that BC Racing has applications for nearly every practical use. From the entry-level daily driver that just wants to lower their car, to the mustache-having Adam LZ professional drifter, or those that want to be just like him, okay? BC established itself as a home for people to go to for almost everything and anything. And since the kits are customizable, a bit like foam was if you were born before 1995, then you knew you could always get what you wanted from a set of BC coilovers. You just had to know essentially what you were looking to do. Pair some Swift springs, a kiss from Denofa himself, and some variable spring rates, and you're pretty much ready to go with pretty much anything. I think the only thing that BC has ever gotten a little struff with has been their willingness to private label some of their components to other suppliers in the past. This means that they make stuff for other companies or have made stuff for other companies as a white label, which can sometimes feel a bit odd. But it's mostly because of their production facility in Taiwan and not BC Racing NA. So it's important to make that distinction because it's not something that the NA team is doing. They're just making cool ass coilovers and developing some really unique shit. The history of BC Racing isn't terribly long because it hasn't been out for such a terribly long time. They came to the market at the perfect time of the explosion of the tuner market in the US and the double explosion of the drift scene that came along with it in the early 2000s thanks to Formula Drift and a lot of that international tuner scene. The reason you'd want to learn about BC Racing is to decide if they're worth buying. And the simple answer is yes, but which ones should you buy? The ones you'll use the most. Just because you go first name, last name photography doesn't mean you have to go buy a Canon R3, right? Maybe a T7i is a good place to start because you really don't know if you're actually going to like the R3 or if you're actually going to make any money doing photography. The BC Racing coilovers are kind of the same thing. Get what you know you'll use within their lineup. Most, if not all, people are going to stick around the BR or ER series, with a few going to the RM series for some track usage. Now, a select few will go ZR series, but that's typically only for the third car in the garage fleet that's only used for race purposes. That's not to say that you shouldn't get a ZR series. I mean, if you want to just spend more money randomly on coilovers, go nuts, but it comes down to what you're really going to use. As you go to install your coilovers, which hopefully you get from Fitment Industries because we need to pay our bills, you plan a full day of installation with a few friends and plan on a couple bloody knuckles, all right? Because no matter what coilover kit you buy, you're guaranteed to have a great time if you're around friends and a terrible time if you do it along by yourself and you bash your hand against a control arm 16 times because your rusted ass V-dub Passat just ain't doing it. But what do you think about BC Racing coilovers? Let us know below. And of course, if you're looking for aftermarket wheels like BC Forged, yes, that's BC Racing as well, as they started back in 2010. Tires, they don't make tires, but we do have tires. Or suspension like BC Racing coilovers, be sure to check it all out at fitmentindustries.com. I'm Alex from Fitment Industries, and we will see you later. Peace.